Get started. Shauna, do you want to
Yeah,
kick us off for our public information meeting?
I sure do. Thank you, Roger. Hi, good evening. I'm Shauna Kitzman, and I'm happy to welcome everyone to the public information meeting for CROG's Transportation Safety Action Plan. We have about an hour scheduled tonight to walk you through what we've been doing on this regional project. And you might have just heard that notification that this meeting is being recorded so that CROG can post to their project webpage. And anyone who wants to learn more but is not able to join us tonight can access that video after the fact. Next slide, please. Before we begin, I'd like to quickly review how we'll run this meeting so that everyone has a chance to understand the groundwork and to participate comfortably in this process. And our goal this evening is to make sure that the information is clear and to hear what's important to you as we head into some of the final stages for the Transportation Safety Action Plan. So Roger will walk us through the introduction and how this plan came to be. Um, we'll also walk through what a safety action plan is and the elements that it includes. We'll talk about important items like the task force, the crash analysis, how we've led engagement and collaboration, the policy and process review, and how we are identifying projects throughout the region to reduce crashes that result in death and serious injury. As we move into item D, we will have an open comment period, and we welcome your comments and questions at that time. And then we'll wrap up with ways that you can reach out to our team. Next slide. I want to note that there's a range of team members here tonight, both from CROG, who is leading this process. So Roger Cron is the project manager, and he's supported tonight by Annika Maher. The consultant team is being led by FHI Studio, now IMEG, and we have Christian Mazer here from their team. CDM Smith, who led the data analysis, is represented tonight by Rima. And then from Tool Design Group, I'm Shauna Kitzman. I am with the Connecticut office here, and I'm supported by Kate Rosen. I do see Perry is listed. She's actually not here, but I'm sure she's with us in spirit. So with that, we could go on to the next slide. A couple of housekeeping items. After our main presentation, there'll be an open question period, as I mentioned, and you can share comments at that point by raising your hand or dropping them in the chat. If you have questions during the presentation, we ask that you share them in the chat. Kate and Annika are manning that. If there's anything that you just want to clarify from what we just heard, if it is something better suited for the Q&A period, we will just address it at that time. We also are opening the written comment period starting today. And that'll be a 2-week public comment period, which will close on December 3rd. And at the end of our presentation, we'll share a couple of emails that we'll be looking out for any comments that you might have. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Roger.
All right. Thank you, Shauna. And I'll also note just from our CROG leadership, Matt Hart is our executive director at CROG, and he is also joining us tonight. So we are the Capital Regional Council of Governments. So we are one of the 8 metropolitan planning organizations in Connecticut. We have 38 member municipalities in our Hartford region. And we have responsibility for transportation planning and programming federal transportation funds. And that's just a brief overview of CROG, very brief. And with that, what are we going to talk about tonight? we are going to discuss a plan to address the roadway safety problem in the CROG region. And on the chart there is some statistics on roadway crashes in our region over a 5-year period. The top line is fatal injuries, and the second line is suspected serious injuries. Crashes in that left column, crashes are recorded by our police officials when crash reports are filed using that classification, whether it's a fatal injury, a serious injury A minor injury B, a possible injury C, or no injury or O. And you can see that we have a range of 33 to 58 fatalities in our region each year over our study period, which is from 2019 to 2023. And serious injuries, they range from the 254 up to about 272 per year over that 5-year period. So that's the problem. And then the next slide shows just the cover of our current regional transportation safety plan. This plan was adopted initially back in 2020. We have made a few amendments to this plan. It is available on our CROG website. And what we're talking about now is an update for a new plan. And our next slide describes a little bit about the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. They call that the SS4A grant, to prepare a safety action plan. So this is a federal program that got started about 2022, provides for funding for planning, infrastructure, behavioral, and operational types of initiatives with the focus of reducing and eliminating fatal and serious injury crashes. So that's the fatal and those serious type A crashes that were on that last slide on our roadways. So the program supports both developing the plans that we're doing right now, a safety action plan, and that's one funding category. And another funding category is implementation of projects that could be infrastructure projects where roadway work, bike lanes and so forth are being constructed, and it can be other implementation strategies as well. And a little bit more about the approach that's used by the US DOT that we're supposed to be following to develop these plans. The Safe System approach has been developed by the US DOT back in 2022. They put this out, and it has 6 principles on the outside of that pie chart in the middle, and then 5 elements. The principles are initially that death and serious injuries are unacceptable and they can be prevented, and we can work towards reducing those. Humans make mistakes. Humans make bad choices, bad decisions. We make mistakes, and we are vulnerable to crashes. The impact on our bodies from the speed from vehicles makes us vulnerable to those serious injuries and deaths. And the responsibility for the whole transportation system is shared. It's shared by manufacturers of vehicles. It's shared by the owners and operators of the transportation roadway network, and by the owners of vehicles, operators, the people using the system. And that safety is proactive. If we want to solve the problem, we're not just going to be able to react to problems as they occur, but we want to get out in front of them and make improvements and use the tools available to us to prevent the crashes. And redundancy is critical. Inevitably, there are going to be components of the overall system that are going to fail, and that we need redundancy so that when there is a failure of one element, that another element kind of kicks in and helps prevent the death or the serious injury. And the basic elements of the transportation system is the road users, the people operating or walking or using the systems, the vehicles themselves. Speed is an important component to all of that, the whole roadway network. And then another element is the post-crash care that comes to the aid of when there is a serious crash. So that's a safe system approach that we're using. Next slide. So we have 8 safety action plan elements, and we're going to go through each one of these on where we are with developing this plan. One is leadership, commitment, and goal setting. Two is the planning structure. Three is the crash analysis. Fourth is the engagement and collaboration. Five is how underserved communities are addressed. Six is policy and process changes. Seven is strategy and project selection. And eight is transparency. So first, leadership and commitment and goal setting. Our CROG policy board, upon the recommendation of our transportation committee, set out a Vision Zero goal to reach zero fatal and serious injury roadway and multi-use trail crashes by 2040, with an intermediate target to reduce fatal, serious, and overall crashes by 50% by 2032. So we did adopt this resolution at CROG. We chose the intermediate date of 2032 was basically halfway between when we adopted that resolution in 2024 to the 2040. Take the 16 years and half of that is 8, and that's how we got to the 2032. But that's our goal. We want to get to zero fatalities and serious injuries. So that's our leadership commitment. And then our planning structure, part of that is we did set up a Vision Zero task force at CROG. The task force, it provides general oversight in the development of the action plan for now, and then going forward, we'll look to monitor and implement elements of the plan. The task force was made up of a variety of members, a multidisciplinary type group, including our various town engineers and town planners, police department, and some advocacy groups like AARP and different committees that advocate for bicycle use and those type of members. So we have had about 10 meetings so far with that group. And next, we're going to dig into the crash analysis, and I'm going to hand that over to Christian.
Yeah, thanks, Roger. I'm going to go over the crash analysis as quickly as I can. So data was collected from something called the Crash Data Repository, which is a database tool that's owned and managed by the University of Connecticut, the Transportation Institute specifically that's there at UConn. We used the most recent 5 complete years of data that we had available, which at the time of the analysis was 2019 through the end of the year of 2023. We looked at crashes on both local and state-owned roadways, but we did exclude anything that was on freeways, expressways, interstates, so nothing on 84, 91, anything like that. And then the last thing that I'll mention is that police departments across CROG are required to use this tool, and they do that so that we get consistent data. And I'll just say that we're very lucky in Connecticut to have this for our use because not every state has a tool as good as this. So we're very, very lucky to have that. Okay, if you go to the next slide, this is the map of the fatal and serious injury crashes that have occurred over the last 5 years in the region. And as Roger mentioned, Safe Streets for All, this grant program, the action plans are created specifically to eliminate and reduce the fatal and serious injury crashes. So at the region level, that's our priority for this plan. And as you can see, lots of the severe crash activity occurs in the dense urban areas, Hartford, East Hartford, New Britain, Manchester, and that shouldn't be too surprising. But at the same time, we know that all of our municipalities in CROG are not the same. CROG is a very diverse COG, and especially in more rural areas, there are often different and broader needs beyond the scope of just looking at severe injuries. So I'm going to walk through briefly our approach to balancing those two things, and that is the network analysis. So like Roger mentioned, police officers, whenever they come to a crash and record it to the UConn database, they assign these KABCO values to the crashes, and that's a nationwide standard. So just to make sure that everyone understands that. And so the first high injury network analysis was created again using only the fatal and serious injuries, so the K and A crashes, which again directly aligns with the grant requirements. And we produced this by finding intersections and roadway segments in throughout CROG that captures 80% of those crashes. So 80% of all of the crashes occur in CROG at around 2% of intersections and 3% of roadway miles, which turns into like, I think 650 intersections and 130 miles of roadway across CROG is where 80% of those are happening. And that's the regional network. And I'll come back to that a little bit later when we talk about selecting projects. And then the high risk network, which was the second network analysis, we analyzed crashes with all severity levels included. However, they were weighted by the factors that are shown in the table on the right side there. So for the first network, the high injury network, fatal and serious injuries are treated equivalently. But for the high risk network, the severities are ranked where fatal injuries contribute the most to the score. These two networks were produced in a similar fashion. However, the analysis for the high risk network was done per town in CROG. So we ran that analysis 38 times. So each municipality has its own unique percentage of intersections and miles that makes up 80% of the crashes in that town. So because each town is different with different roadways and different crash patterns, those values are all going to be different, and they range from 1 to 11%. Okay, next slide. Here's an example of Berlin's mapping that was completed. The map on the left is simply all of the crashes that occurred during the 5-year period that resulted in some form of injury. In the center, the map with the red segments on it, that is Berlin's piece of the regional high injury network. So the high injury network, if we zoomed out, would be for the whole region, but this is just if we zoom into Berlin, this is what is shown. And then on the right side, we have the results of Berlin's high risk network, which again was unique to Berlin, so that they have its own analysis. And then next slide. In addition to the mapping, we also created a number of graphs and tables and charts that break down the data in different ways. And I'll note that all of the towns in CROG have a crash profile that's available on CROG's website that you can go and access and look at, and we encourage you to. And the full data analysis that we completed will be attached in the final plan when that's all approved and published. And now I'll pass it to Shauna.
Thanks, Christian. Okay, let's walk through what we've been doing for engagement and collaboration. So one of the most important elements of a successful safety action plan is meaningful engagement. And for this process, we led several different types of engagement across the region to make sure we were talking to different folks that represent the many ages, abilities, and interest level of folks who live throughout CROG. So these efforts really help to ground truth the data, especially the crash data that we are able to access, to understand any local concerns, to hear directly from residents, advocates, students, business owners, and community organizations. So in addition to working alongside a task force that CROG identified, the community input is really shaping the identification of those high priority networks or high priority projects, as well as the development of region-wide strategies that support safer walking, biking, taking transit, as well as driving. So we used a variety of formats. You might see there's a legend at the bottom right, and they indicate different borders on these different types of engagement that we led. These are kind of grouped into several different buckets, including community focus groups and table talks, student engagement, walk audits, community pop-up events, municipal stakeholder meetings, and a community survey. So many different opportunities for engaging with the community. Next slide, please. Okay. So our first engagement type that I'll walk you through is focus groups and table talks, which are highlighted here by the orange border. Next slide. So table talks are small group conversations in which we provide guidance to interested groups on how to invite a group of their friends or their neighbors or their colleagues to come over to meet at a coffee shop or an ice cream shop to talk about their concerns related to roadway safety in the region. We provide this guidance as shown on the right, and we also provide a stipend for hosts, and they can provide food or drink if they so choose. And they share back with us notes from which they gathered in speaking with their friends or family or neighbors, as well as photos. And that is really a casual way for us to get information without the team being in the room. But it did yield a lot of very helpful feedback. As shown on the left, we held a focus group with some older adults facilitated at AARP's headquarters in Hartford. And we really do get candid conversations. We hear about personal challenges, just in terms of daily travel needs. This was an interesting group because it was about half folks who are involved in AARP's more senior driving program, and then half that are transit dependent and do not have regular access to a car. So these folks had different experiences using our streets, and it was very enlightening. I really did enjoy this conversation. Next slide, please. A couple other events that were kind of fell into the focus group category were Hartford Proud, an after-school event in North End of Hartford, where youth told us that Albany Avenue feels unsafe and that construction nearby their facility at the Swift factory can cause some challenges as people try to access this area on foot, bike, or by driving. And these experiences really highlighted everyday barriers to safe walking and biking. I will share, we also did meet with folks, go back, okay, thanks. Adults with disabilities, and this was organized by an advocacy group that does work with people who have disabilities, and they described inaccessible sidewalks and crossings, inconsistent curb ramps, as well as difficulty using transit regularly. They really stressed the need for ADA improvements and better pedestrian scale lighting throughout the region. We talked a bit about, managing snow clearance and ice clearance in the colder months. And we also heard a little bit about e-bike safety and making sure anyone who's riding an e-bike is educated on how to be a courteous person who shares the road. Last but not least, we held some table talks, or we organized groups that have table talks with a couple of bicycle advocacy groups and active transportation advocacy groups. And they really highlighted missing connections throughout our bike network in the region, unsafe driver behavior, and the desire for more protected bicycle infrastructure. Next slide, please. So next we'll talk a bit about student engagement. We worked closely with CONDOT as well as some individual schools in the region who have appetite for helping their students walk, bike, or roll to school. Elementary school engagement is super fun. It really helps us understand how students and families travel and what makes them feel unsafe, or how supportive infrastructure can make them feel more confident as riders, young riders. We also help facilitate some bike buses. So that is when you organize a series of students on bikes with a couple of captains. Generally, they're interested parents or teachers or others from the community who want to help sort of build confidence and strengthen numbers by organizing a couple of scheduled bike rides to school. Across the schools that we went to, including in Manchester, East Hartford, West Hartford, and New Britain, we really saw that there is strong enthusiasm for biking and walking to school. A lot of great resources available at Conda through their Safe Routes to School program, but there's also some unmet needs, including training, access to equipment, and consistent infrastructure. Next slide, please. Great. We held our first bike bus with a school called Silver Lane. There was about 30 students who rode with staff, parents, and law enforcement. This event included safety checks for the students and their bikes, as well as helmets, and talking about having that structure of the bike bus to help less confident riders participate. We also worked with Conda on the Bike New Britain School Day in May, and that was part of a week-long education program that taught bicycle handling and the rules of the road, and repetition that was shared through all the age groups helped the students build their skills. As shown on the boy on the left holding a little pizza, we worked closely with the Conda Micro Grant program, and we successfully applied for and won a small grant to provide these reflective pizzas that can be affixed to bikes, scooters, or backpacks to improve visibility for students who walk, ride, or roll to school. And we also provided some route mapping and programming for their biking day. Last but not least, we did the Bowers Bike Bus, which is a well-established bike bus that includes regularly about 30 students and volunteers, emphasize the need for basic maintenance kits and more student bike skills training. So all of this was really helpful in just understanding what are some, what's going on around the region in terms of appetite and what is sort of unmet demand. Next, please. Okay, we did one organized walk audit, and this was with college students at Central in New Britain. Next slide, please. These students, we took them out in the field, and many of them pointed out missing curb ramps, abrupt sidewalk endings, unsafe crossings, especially at Fen Road and Myra Cohen Way, if you know the area around New Britain. And this corridor feels very car dominated and lacks many pedestrian amenities. The walk audit really helped us document real barriers to accessing transit on foot and including major station areas. I will say New Britain does do a lot in terms of walking and biking infrastructure, so no shade to them. They're doing a great job in general. Next slide, please. Okay, we held one pop-up event in late 2024, so almost a year ago. That was at Pratt Street in downtown Hartford. Next slide, please. So we reached a handful of hardy New Englanders who braved the cold. It was very cold. I don't know if there was an Arctic blast or what going on at that time, but we were out there. It was a winter festival. We talked to people who had a chance to spin the wheel, the wheel shown on the right-hand picture, in which that is sort of conversation starters about roadway safety throughout the region. And people had a chance to win a gift card for Dunkin' Donuts. Most people shared concerns about speeding and missing pedestrian connections as we spoke with them, or they completed our survey, which I'll talk about in a couple minutes. Next slide, please. Okay, our municipal meetings. We are coming off fresh of about 36 conversations with many of the municipalities in the region. Next slide, please. So we wanted to present the data that we had to all of the member towns in the region. And we clustered the meetings that we held virtually with about 2 to 4 neighboring municipalities, many of which are kind of create mini clusters within the region so that they have some shared borders, they have shared corridors, and many of them deal with the same issues. These meetings were held throughout September and October, and they lasted up to 2 hours. The primary audience was town planners, engineers, public works staff, and law enforcement who were able to review the data that we shared with them and ground truth it and tell us, yes, this is a problem. Yes, we are seeing that, or yes, there are many crashes in front of this certain, business district. All of that was very helpful, and we got to know what some of the local struggles are and opportunities to advance the plan. So their feedback is going to guide the project prioritization to ensure that this regional safety action plans really does reflect the conditions and municipal priorities. We want to make sure that these are something that the towns can really wrap their arms around and get behind. So we wanted to make sure that it is true to what they need and what they want. Next slide. And last but not least, we led a community survey. You can go on to the next one. The map responses, we collected about 500 different data points from folks that took time to drop a pin on the map and share their thoughts with us throughout the region. So most people, no surprise, are concerned about speeding and aggressive driving, unsafe crossings, and missing bike and ped infrastructure. I don't know, do I sound like a broken record? I feel like there are some key themes that are coming up again and again here. But again, need for better connections between the communities on our roadways and other infrastructure. And there is really deep support for education, technology, and other planning activities to really put emphasis on protecting those most vulnerable road users. Next slide. Yeah, with that, I will pass it back over to my team.
All right, thank you, Shauna. So one element of a safety action plan that we are required to include is the identification of underserved communities. So this is a graphic of the current underserved communities as defined through a tool by the U.S. Department of Transportation under the Safe Streets and Roads for All program. So those purple areas within our region are our underserved communities. A large part of that is based on economic data, and we are using their US DOT tool for that. So that'll be noted in our report as it's required, and when projects locations are identified, they'll be cross-referenced with that. And then we have a section on policy and process changes. We will be looking at our current CROG policies and plan documents, some of which are listed, our core documents listed there. For example, our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which is a overarching document of transportation plans in our region, long-range plans, and so we'll be looking at how those prioritize safety. Also, our Unified Planning Work Program, that is a document that identifies programs and projects that are funded by the Connecticut DOT for planning projects in our region. We have a complete street policy at CROG that emphasizes, prioritizes the planning, design, and construction of the transportation system for all legal roadway users. Our LOTSIP program. LOTSIP is the local transportation capital improvement program funded by state dollars. It offers millions of dollars to each council of government region to develop roadway and bikeway and sidewalk and path improvements. And we'll be taking a look at how we can best use that program to increase safety. We also did a roundabout screening study where we looked at intersections in our region that, if converted from a typical signalized intersection or unsignalized intersection to a single lane roundabout, which are feasible in light of safety criteria. It offers a great opportunity to increase safety. So those are some of the documents that we will be reviewing as part of our planning effort. And then we move on to project prioritization and selection. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Christian.
Thank you, Roger. So we'll touch on a few different levels of projects here. We'll start at the region level, talk about infrastructure projects, and then we'll zoom down into how the municipal priorities are going to be set up in the plan. And then we'll also talk about non-infrastructure projects, so things that are not specifically shovels in the ground, people out working. So we'll touch on a variety of different things here. So next slide. Yeah, thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, the high injury network is the emphasis for our regional effort. The network had some 1,300 locations throughout the region. That includes intersections and corridors, which is very overwhelming to look at. So we developed an approach to prioritize these locations, but we wanted to do it in a way that's not just efficient and provides the greatest impact, but really prioritizes our vulnerable users, so pedestrians, bicyclists, transit riders, people in underserved communities, our older populations, etc. So we have these prioritized locations based on that exercise, and from there, what we started to do was select projects. And these projects can be an individual intersection, or it could be a stretch of a roadway with a couple of intersections, or it could be 10 intersections in a row. It just kind of depends on the context and what is happening on the ground. And after identifying these projects based on the prioritization, we looked at recurring issues, what the crash data tells us, what the local conditions are of the roadways, and any information that we can use to supplement that. And from there, recommending things called safety countermeasures, which are essentially just roadway treatments, but that's a big umbrella, and I'll talk about it a little bit. But these are things that have been proven to reduce crash severity. And before I move on, I just want to say, as far as why we're going this far down into looking at projects, it's really all tied back to funding. So if our plan just says, we need safe roads, and we say what the roads are, that's not going to get us very far. But if we say, on Main Street in Manchester, there were these severe crashes, and most of them were pedestrians crossing the street. And to address that, we're going to add better sidewalks, and we're going to reduce speeds by implementing a road diet. And those sorts of things are what bolsters the plan and makes the projects competitive for funding. So that's the intention beyond making these selections and adding these countermeasures. And so if you go to the next slide, we get these countermeasures from a number of places. This is just one example from the Federal Highway Administration, but we used a number of them for this plan. And so, we would use these resources in order to, if you hit the next slide, Annika, I think I zoomed in here. Yeah, so like if we're looking at an intersection, we may use one or more recommendations to address whatever safety concerns are happening at the intersection. And not all of them are going to apply, not all of them are going to address the same things, but it's just a resource and a well of information that we can use to start coming up with these safety project solutions. And then in addition to the region-wide focus, like I mentioned earlier, all of the towns in CROG have different priorities, and the municipal projects are how we're addressing this. So a similar output in terms of creating projects, but the path to get there is a little bit different. So we presented our data analysis to the towns at the meetings, and we've collected their local feedback. And now we're combining that with the different engagement outlets that we've been using throughout the duration of the project, and creating a set of projects based on those things. And the next slide is this is a draft of Berlin's municipal projects that were identified. And so in the final plan, each town will have a map with the projects that were identified and an accompanying list of the locations and any of the treatments that are recommended in order to address the safety concerns. I think that's all I had to say. Yeah.
Thanks, Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah, as mentioned earlier, through our engagement, both with the public and with our task force, those conversations have really reinforced the need for education as well as enforcement, policy updates, and better data tools, as well as regional coordination to support the multifaceted safe system approach. So all of that would complement any changes to infrastructure that Christian talked about. We already talked a little bit about the education piece through our work with the schools, but there's also a need for ongoing community education and awareness to make sure people know what Vision Zero is, what it means to have a safe system approach, and why it's important. I would like to draw attention to a couple of themes that rose to the top. So to counter that driver behavior, either aggression or under the influence or speeding, which are top safety concerns throughout the region and well beyond. I mean, it's not just here in the Hartford region, but there is a growing openness to having automated enforcement, particularly around schools, and to target red light running. Not all communities are on board. Some remain skeptical, and that's okay. It's still a newer technology. But we are starting to see some early successes as some of the communities like Marlborough and West Hartford is pretty close to getting automated enforcement as these communities in the CROG region and beyond are starting to implement automated enforcement. And we think that these might inspire other communities to consider. There's also a desire for integrated communication strategies across police, fire, and public relations, either at the regional level or any local level, if that capacity is available, to improve driver and rider or pedestrian behavior. Another one I will draw your attention to is many of our communities are smaller and they operate with a very lean municipal team. So there is some persistent staffing and funding challenges that might slow down or hinder project delivery related to infrastructure projects. And that really led to discussions about shared services at the regional level, as well as technical training for municipal staff. And any sort of regional coordination models or templates that some of our smaller communities could use. So those were a couple of strategies that are shaking out. We're still developing this piece of the plan and welcome thoughts. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to my team.
Thank you, Shauna. One element of the plan is the progress and transparency of the plan. Our CROG website has a Vision Zero Safety Action Plan page that shows current progress on our plan. There's a number of resources on there. Our safety action plan will be posted on that website. That's what it kind of looks like. I'll show you on the next screen in a minute. The final safety action plan, we are working to have that completed and approved in early 2026. And then as we work towards implementing strategies, we'll have online progress. And we do have that in some fashion already on our next screen. Let's see. That is our web page. So as you see, we posted our public meeting information, and in that heading right below municipal project prioritization, we have all the crash maps and crash data for each municipality that we prepared. Each of our 38 towns are listed there. They have the basic data, and we're in the process of working with the towns to finalize those priority project locations with them. And on the next screen, we have another really neat resource available. We have a CROG crash data dashboard. This is a GIS based tool with a map on the left that can zoom into your town, any location within our region. It will draw from data from the Yukon crash repository for a period of all the crashes since 2015. And it also has our priority, which is this in red, total fatalities. In the middle of the screen on the right there, serious injuries. The graph at the bottom shows the yearly progress. The last little tail of that shows our current year 2025. That's a little misleading. If you read the print in the top left of the box, it'll tell you that that's current to date, or well, that's the latest information available for the year. So that will change. We didn't go down that drastically, but I think we are making progress in the right direction this year. And so that's some of the means that we're trying to get this out to the public with our progress in data. And with that, this is pretty much the end of our presentation. If you have comments on what we've presented, comments or questions on what we've presented, I am serving as our project manager for this project at CROG. You can email me at that email address shown, my office phone number, or if you want to mail something to me, the postal service address is there. And also Kate Rosen from the Tool Design Group is assisting with our effort in documenting comments. So we want to kind of gather any comments based on this public meeting in the next 2 weeks, so that then we can incorporate that into our safety action plan document as we work to complete that. And so we can just leave that. Well, our next slide is just we're having an open discussion, and you're free to, I don't know, Kate, if there are any chat comments that need to be addressed. Otherwise, if people want to open their mic up and ask a question or have a comment, or now's the time to do so.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, hello, Doug.
So East Hartford town engineer, happy to see what you've gone through. You guys do a great job. It is well set up for safe streets for all and the ability to go track funding, and I really appreciate that. As I was looking through my town-specific data, I know on the portal I can filter for road types, but in the end report, will that also have road type be separated out so that especially state versus town ownership will be noted into the data? Because as you know, when you try to go onto a state road, there's quite a bit of other procedures you have to follow. Lots of it even gets discredited when you want to put lots of onto a state road. So it would be helpful, I think, to have that if you aren't doing it already.
Okay, we will identify we're going to have we haven't gotten a feedback back to our towns yet from our meetings. We will identify the state route number and have that clear if it is a state route. Not on all the data well, like in the crash dashboard, I guess that would just, you'd have to look.
Yeah, I can easily do it there, so
Yeah, we'd
I
have to
can
use
switch it. Yeah.
that. But in general, as far as future funding opportunities, our experience for municipalities that have applied um, for like an implementation grant, just in
Mhm.
general, I do want to make the comment that Connecticut DOT has been very supportive of over since we made submissions in 2022. I think they've pretty much endorsed almost all of them that have also been on state routes. So we,
Mhm.
as a COG, have certainly facilitated any requests for funding, and we'll continue to work through that and work with the DOT to get their written letters of support for
Right.
projects when we.
My comment about it's discredited is related to LOTSIP, which is,
Right, that's a
it's
different story. Right,
it's on the tip of my tongue right now. You have an RFP out, and and one of the things, if you push it onto the state road, then you do lose some points as opposed
right,
to keeping it on municipal. So
right.
we're looking carefully at that as we
Okay,
evaluate projects. So, but that's all I had. You guys do a great job. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Hi, question, Barbara Modio. Has the crash data been able to isolate the right turn on right problems, especially where there are pedestrian crossings? In particular, we're really concerned about the Route 6 crossing on the airline trail. I think it's in the Willimantic area, which is wide street with a right turn on red and a trail crossing. But everywhere you go, where there's a road crossing, that right turn on red is really dangerous. So is that something you're looking at?
We just had another comment about that, didn't we, Roger?
So we aren't really digging in deep on that, but we did. Someone else just recently made the comment about that. We got a written comment. The State Department of Transportation, in response to a request from the state legislature, wrote a report on right turn on red in general, because there are a lot of public concerns about right turn on red. People feeling basically unsafe, and the inherent conflict of vehicles and people crossing. So in general, my understanding is the crash data does not show the need to have a overall wide scale, like, if you will, ban on right turn on red. Even though I think nationwide, there's a discussion by the general public on your sentiments. So it would really be a case by case basis. One thing that is new, and it is I know it's in the State Department of Transportation Complete Streets new design guidelines that they just adopted, I'd like to say about a year or more ago, is that they have some blank out right turn on red signs. So where there is, I don't know the exact criteria when they use them, but they would be activated if somebody, as I understand it, would push a crosswalk button, have a crosswalk indication, and then a right turn on red sign that is illuminated would be activated. So it would prohibit right turns on red when that crosswalk is showing the pedestrian has the right to cross. So that's something a little different that would help.
It would help. Some of this location in particular, and lots that I see, involve a state road and a town road. So that could be another issue that needs to be worked out.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment.
Roger, Ruth Grove had a question.
Having a little hard time hearing it, Kate. Sorry.
Ruth Grove had a question about bicyclists on sidewalks or on trails who fail to give warning as they pass, especially passing people in wheelchairs. Ruth, did you have any more specificity about that? Was that related to e-bikes or in general? You can put that in the chat if you want.
Yes, we did hear that with our group, and that is, I think with e-bikes, we have discussed that at our task force meetings just recently, where there's certainly an awareness of the issues regarding the prevalence of e-bikes. It's new technology. It's used by a lot of different aged riders. The regulations that could be considered a little complicated. I'm looking on my bulletin board right now on a flyer that Connecticut DOT just posted with 3 different classes of e-bikes. Class 1 and class 2 can go 20 miles an hour, class 3, 28 miles an hour. Class 1 and class 2 are might be allowed on trails. Class 3 is not, but that would be like on a trail as opposed to a sidewalk. So I think, Shauna touched on certain education needs as non-infrastructure strategies. And I think there's going to be more and more discussion needed on e-bike rules of the road, and certainly that interaction between pedestrians and bikes. Our team went out to West Hartford, which has been implementing some good quick build projects with at certain intersections, and I saw firsthand just about a month or so ago too, with people on e-bikes and scooters, and basically intimidating a fellow who was walking on the sidewalk because they just whizzed by. So I think we're just going to have to, as society, kind of get a grip on how we deal with that. And we'll certainly be open to getting some write-up on that. If you have specific suggestions on how that can be addressed, we can see if we can include those in our report in some fashion. Anything else? Maybe I just we're at an hour. We had kind of targeted an hour. I'd maybe just like to open it up to our executive director, Matt. Would you like have anything to add before we close out?
Thank you so much, Roger. I just want to thank you and Annika and all the members of the team here for the informative presentation. I'd like to thank everyone who attended. Hopefully, you found this to be informative. We appreciate your comments. We're excited about this project. It's an important project so that we can implement good infrastructure projects in the future. We are proud of the fact that we set up a Vision Zero task force to serve the region, and we are looking to continue that effort over the long term. We recognize how serious of an issue safety is on our roads for all users of our roadways, and we're committed to doing our part, working collaboratively with our towns and other key stakeholders to turn that around and to achieve our Vision Zero goals. So thank you all so much. Please stay in tune with our project and have a good evening, and we wish everyone a safe and happy Thanksgiving holiday as well.
Thank you, Matt. And with that, we'll end our meeting. Thank you.